have Hector with Tycor Title with me today, and we want to talk a little bit about title insurance. And I'm just going to go and ask him a few questions so that you guys are aware of why title insurance is so important when you're actually selling a home, and then how that affects the buyers as well. So, Hector, tell me, what is title insurance?
So title insurance, I'll explain it this way. So typically the way insurance works for like a car, for example, it's from the moment you get it going forward. Title insurance is a little bit different. It's protecting the sellers and the buyers from the day that they bought it going backwards. It's a little bit different. And what it's protecting them from is any kinds of liens, easements, anything possibly clouding that property that can come down later in line and affect them. So that's basically what title insurance is in a nutshell, but it covers all sorts of things on that property, and including also for the sellers, any possible liens that follow them. Child support is a big one. Those kind of things is what title insurance takes care of.
Got it. So what is clouding the title? What does that mean?
So clouding the title is something that can prevent from the transaction going forward. So for example, a big one that I see right now is solar liens. So say the seller got solar back in 2008, let's just say. They actually put a lien on the property clouding title. So they can't sell the house until that lien is taken care of. Meaning, say they bought it for $10,000. Until those $10,000 are paid off to that solar company, they can't go forward with it. It'll be on that title forever. Now, sometimes the buyers can assume it if they want to. Most of the time, they don't want to assume another loan on top of what they're buying the house. So that's just one example, but different types of cloud title. A mechanics lien is another big one where, say somebody does some work on a property, they do some yard work and they never get paid, they can actually put a lien on the property. So same concept. If it doesn't get paid off at the time of selling, that clouds the title. So those are the things that we're looking for when the reports.
All right. And so when you're looking at these reports and we're going through a transaction, maybe the sellers are trying to sell their house, you find these things. What are the most common? You already mentioned a few. Are there any other more common liens or things clouding a title that would prevent it from transferring to the buyers?
Well, one thing that I see a lot too. Yeah, one thing that I see a lot is just also how title is held. As simple as that. A lot of times the seller, it can be like a husband and wife, and then maybe their child, and they think maybe the wife's on there. And when I pull up the vesting of how title is held, it could just be the husband. And so that can affect different things as well. So we're looking at how title is held. We're looking at the different types of clouds. Like I mentioned, mechanics lien would be one of them. There's easements, which those are the city, which would be maybe like a water easement that they had put down before the property was built. Those usually don't affect title too much, but it's good to know that they're there. So on the reports, we'll have a bullet point basically of everything that's on that property and that could possibly be affecting it. So we're looking at all of that here.
And how does title insurance cover the seller? Like what do they purchase title insurance for?
So so the way title insurance works is that the buyer will pay for the lender's portion of the policy, and then the seller will pay for the seller's policy. The seller's policy is covering them for if down the line something comes back that maybe was not paid off all the way, then at that point, title insurance will cover that cost. So if there was a lien that comes up that was supposed to be taken care of at the close of escrow, then that's when the policy comes into effect.
Right. Now, so you mentioned so the buyer has to pay their own title insurance, and then the seller has to pay their own title insurance during a transaction, correct? So that that
is correct. So what the buyer
go.
Oh, sorry. No, it's what the buyer's paying for is what they call the lender's policy. And so that's just so that the lender, and that's 100% required as well. The lender wants to make sure that what the property that they're buying is not going to have any of those issues. That's why the buyer has to pay for that policy to clear them that they're not buying a house that's full of, those liens that we talked about, right? And so it keep the lender at ease, knowing what they're borrowing money to.
Perfect. And another thing that I wanted to ask is, obviously, we know as soon as escrow is opened on a transaction, someone selling a house and escrow opens, there's a preliminary title report that goes out to the buyer. Now, what is that preliminary title reporting? What's its function? What is it for?
So the preliminary title report, the best way I can describe it is like Carfax for a car, but for a house. And that's kind of what basically the policy that we're looking at. It's about 20 pages long, and it's going to tell you every detail as far as how title is held, the legal description of the property. So sometimes this happens where they think it's a single family residence and it's actually maybe a multi-family dwelling or a condo, for example. So those are the things that we're looking at to make sure everything is actually accurate and recorded correctly with the county. It's also going to tell us all those liens that are popping up, if there is any open mortgages on the property. So if they took out 2 mortgages on that property, we will see everything on there and for the amounts that they were taking out for. We're looking at a whole basically history of that. And when we get that, when we go into escrow, we want to make sure those liens are taken care of before the close of escrow. So at that point, we work with escrow hand in hand to order the demands and get everything cleared off that's needed.
Is there something a seller should do before putting their house on sale to prevent any issues with title during the escrow process?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So with the listing agent, which I would advise is ordering either the prelim when you have the listing appointment, or order a detailed profile from us that will kind of give us a nice, not a full detailed description like the prelim would give, but to give you an idea of what could possibly be on there, any liens, any mortgages, so that way you can go over it with the seller at that time. And that way they can automatically check off if that's something that they're not familiar with or doesn't belong to them. Another thing that I highly recommend that I'm seeing more and more is having the sellers fill out the statement of information, the SI, earlier in the transaction to give to escrow. What the SI does, the statement of information, is they fill in the seller's names and social securities and basically run it through to make sure nothing hits on that name. So for example, if you have a common name like John Smith, right? You could have possible liens on there that are not even. So with the SI helps clear those off because it's going off the social security number. So those are good things to take care in advance for your sellers, just so to clear their name a little bit.
I had an instance not too long ago with a client who was trying to sell their house. We put it on the market. When we pulled out the title, they had I think it was an $80,000 lien on it. It's from what you were talking about back then, 2008, 2003, when they were doing all this solar stuff, and they were putting those liens on the titles, and it's free, but it's gonna be attached to the taxes in your house, your hero loans. And what happened to her is she had to sell her house, but at the same time she had to pay that off. The worst part is that the company that did the work disappeared, like it was non-existent. You know how back then there was a lot of sketchy stuff happening. The company disappeared. They couldn't find them, and they didn't even finish the work. Like they charged her for solar, they charged her for roofing, they charged her for the new windows, which the windows they installed, and they charged for the cooling paint. And it was like an $80,000 loan. She had to pay it, and probably half the stuff was never done, which is really sad.
And the worst part I've seen where similar situations, but if they don't want to pay it off, they just want to cancel it, then the company will come and remove those panels, and then that's it. And so they'll leave the holes and everything on there, and so it looks very bad. But unfortunately, I do encounter that a lot with those solar liens, solar loans, is they're always clouding title and they're always a pain to get rid of.
and then another thing that maybe we can discuss is one of those other things is bankruptcies. Because I had another client who we sold our house. I put it on the market, and we come to find out during the escrow process that she had no idea that because she had filed bankruptcy at the beginning, she held the house, but she had filed bankruptcy, and the second loan to her house was kind of forgiven from them, but the lien was still in the property. So when they go and sell the home, when they were to sell the home, they had to pay that second loan, even though she was adamant. She's like, I put it in bankruptcy, they cleared it, and like they cleared it from you as a person, but they didn't clear it from. It still gets stuck to the title of the house. So that's another biggie when people file bankruptcy.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime you have a seller in that situation, if you can keep all that paperwork, that would be so much better, because then at that point the escrow can order the demands and they have a little more proof to work on. So definitely, and that's where the SI also comes in handy to make sure they have everything that's up to date and anything they might need during that process.
Yeah. Now, is there anything else that you think that a seller should need to know about title insurance, or how to prevent certain things in their home so that they don't become a hindrance when it's time to put it on the market?
The biggest thing is just make sure they verify how title is held. That's a big one, and a common misconception is they'll hold it, especially if maybe they want to sell and somebody in title has passed away. So to avoid any kind of probate situations, you want to make sure how title is held and make sure it's held properly. So joint tenants in common, you can do all different types. It's a case by case, but always verify that at the time for you guys, for the listing agents, at the time of the listing appointment, and for the sellers, just to make sure how title is held, we can get that grant deed that they recorded so they can verify it's correct. Because I've had transactions where they think for sure the son's on title and the parents have passed away. Comes to, I see the grant deed and only the parents were on title. The son was never on there.
Oh, wow.
And so then they has to go through the probate process. So it's always good to know that ahead of time. Yeah, so there's no surprises during the transaction.
And now that you're touching a little bit on probate, like how long does a probate case take, like on average?
I would say a couple of months. So one of my personal family members right now is going through it, and they've been going through it for, I believe, 9 months. And it just depends. And especially right now with COVID and courts being closed and so selective, it takes a little bit longer than usual. And it also varies by county. I know LA County has been closed since the beginning of the pandemic. So everything is very slow on that end. So it's case by case, but at least I would say minimum probably 3 months. An estimated guess would be for probate.
Okay, well, thank you so much. That's a lot of good information, a lot of detailed information. I really appreciate your time. Now, if someone was trying to reach out to you guys because they want you guys to become, or you to become their title insurance rep, where do they contact you?
So they can call me. My cell phone number is 951-479-6578. My email is Hector, HECTOR, at teamtycortitle.com. And also, if any of the stuff that we talked about, we do have PDFs of it. So if you would like to have some printouts or just some PDF versions that you can post online, just so you know how to hold title, what to look for in transaction, we do have those available for you guys. Just shoot me an email. I'm more than happy to send those to you.
Well, thank you for your time, Hector. I really, really appreciate you. And we'll be in touch soon.
All right. Take care, guys. Thanks for listening.